You're listening to Systemic Error Podcast. The failure was designed.
Brutal CNN supercut laced beer Trump team's brazen lies that just blew up in court, based on an article by Elizabeth Price. Trump bought the pool, then broke the story. Power first, facts later. This is not a story about a vandalized reflecting pool. It is a story about a president who wanted a patriotic spectacle, used federal power to rush it through, and then tried to convert the predictable failure of his own operation into a criminal conspiracy. The reporting makes the sequence plain. Trump declared the pool decaying, pushed an obit renovation, demanded a July 4 deadline, and crowed about the liner as American flag pool. When the work went wrong, the administration did what it always does when reality embarrasses it. It looked for a weaker target and called that target the culprit. The real decision makers, the people with actual institutional power, here with Trump, his administration, the Department of the Interior, the Department of Justice, and the U.S. Police. They control the contract, the timeline, the narrative, and the prosecution. That matters because the damage was not an accident in a vacuum. The source says the DOJ now admits the likely cause was a rushed and budget installation by RC, the primary contractor. A rushed project is not a mystery. It is the result of a political deadline imposed from the top, wrapped in vanity, and executed through a no-bid contract. The authority was centralized. The failure was manufactured. The stable was the point. Trump and his team spent months telling a story about vandals cutting the liner with knives and box cutters. Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt escalated the lie by dragging in deranged individuals and even tossing in a partisan smear about Democrats and Obama donors. Jim Nintiro then used the force of the U.S. Attorney's Office to turn the story into an indictment. That is the mechanism. First the falsehood, then the official voice, then the arrest. The accusation against Olympian David Heron was never just a legal action. It was a stage prop for a presidential lie. Heron's reported account and the DOJ's later motion to dismiss show how flimsy the case was. But flimsy is not the issue. The issue is that federal power was used to punish a convenient narrative public before anyone had done the basic work of verifying what actually happened. The cover story collapsed. When Pirro moved to dismiss the charges, the government blamed DOJ for failing to give DOJ accurate information. That is not exoneration. It is bureaucratic self-protection after a political head went bad. Pirro's statement is especially revealing because it shifts responsibility downward only after the damage is done. Their administration was eager to speak with certainty when certainty meant criminalizing a bystander. Once the evidence cracked, responsibility became everyone else's problem. That is how authoritarian systems preserve themselves: confidence on the way in, procedural fault on the way out. Vanity projects breed public life. The Reflecting Pool episode is a telling case study in how personal vanity becomes public expense and then public deception. The cost ballooned to more than $14.65 million. The administration wanted a fast, detachable result for July 4. The result was audit, liner problems, false accusations, and a federal arrest built on a story that now appears unsustainable. This is not just incompetence. It is an ecosystem in which image matters more than stewardship, speed matters more than competence, and blame matters more than truth. The contractor rushes because the president wants a deadline. The agencies scramble because the president wants a villain. The prosecutor performs because the president wants a spectacle. The pattern beneath the pool. The deeper pattern is simple. When power causes harm, it reaches for scapegoats and calls that law enforcement. When its own decisions fail, it outsources blame downward to contractors, employees, or random citizens. When the evidence finally arrives, it blames confusion, missing information, or some other institutional haze. That is the political logic here, not governance, not accountability. Control the story, weaponize the state and protect the people at the top from the consequences of their own decisions. The reflecting pool was damaged by haste and top-down vanity. The public narrative was damaged by a government that preferred punishment to truth. You've been listening to Systemic Error. Thanks to AuthorNet for today's article. With the automated voice of Diana, thanks for listening.